There was a deathbed confession that shook the three kingdoms. What did Khương Duy, the last general of Shu Han, say in his final moments? And why did he believe that the fall of Shu Han wasn't due to war, but because of a person within the court? Who was that person? Did the genius strategist Zhuge Liang really make a grave mistake that caused the efforts of so many years to go to waste? The answer will surprise you. Watch the entire video to uncover the truth behind that deathbed confession. And if you enjoy such surprising historical stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with future videos. In the final years of the Three Kingdoms era, when the fires of war had burned away the hopes and faith of a dynasty, one man quietly bore the last responsibility of history. That man was Khương Duy. He was not born in the heart of Shu Han, nor was he the first disciple of Zhuge Liang, but he became the one to hold the flag of Shu high during the storm of history. Born under the banner of Cao Cao, and once a general of Wei, Khương Duy chose to follow Zhuge Liang not just because of his talents, but because of a belief that Shu Han could bring justice to a chaotic world. And that belief is what he carried until his last breath. From an outsider, Khương Duy became the successor of Zhuge Liang, a man revered across the land for his brilliant strategies, knowledgeable in both celestial phenomena and the geography of the earth. Zhuge Liang not only taught him strategies and military tactics, but also entrusted him with all his unfulfilled dreams, the Northern Campaign, the unification of Zhongyuan, and the revival of Liu Bei's great cause. And from that moment, Khương Duy became the highest military leader of Shu Han, repeatedly marching against Wei, never tiring, never retreating, even though each return brought disappointment, burdening his shoulders. People called him famous but ineffective, but few understood the loneliness of a general carrying the fate of a dynasty that was running out of hope. Until his deathbed, Khương Duy did not speak of military victories or glory. Instead, he left behind a cold, resentful deathbed confession, exposing the person who made all his and Zhuge Liang's efforts in vain. The failure of my plans was due to fate, but the fall of Shu Han was because of the foolhardy, sycophantic officials that the emperor trusted. This statement was like a dagger cutting through the fog of history, revealing the person who pushed Zhuge Liang to failure, who pushed him, Khương Duy, to the brink, and led the entire dynasty to irreversible ruin. In Khương Duy's eyes, Zhuge Liang did not fail because of a lack of talent, and Shu Han did not lose because of inferiority, but because of misplaced trust. Emperor Liu Shan, the successor to Liu Bei, was not capable of governing the nation, and lacked the wisdom to distinguish between true ministers and sycophants. While Zhuge Liang poured his heart into the Northern Campaign, the court was manipulated by a group of sycophantic officials who indulged in luxury, clung to power, depleted the treasury, and severed the supply lines, plunging the rear support into chaos. Every military campaign was one of deprivation. Every major plan was cut short by the ignorance and indifference of the court. Those who should have shared the responsibility with Zhuge Liang only dragged him down. Khương Duy witnessed it all. He followed Zhuge Liang, seeing every missed opportunity, every battle that should have been a victory, but ended in retreat, and every time the soldiers were exhausted by hunger, lack of orders, and lack of support from the capital. He did not blame the enemy, but only blamed the weakness of the people. His deathbed confession was not aimed at Sima Yi or the Wei army, but pointed directly at the rotting heart within Shu Han, the cowardice of Liu Shan, and the existence of incompetent men who held power. It wasn't just an accusation. It was the final indictment from a man who had dedicated his entire life to an ideal, only to witness that ideal crumble because of those he once called comrades, kings, and the support of his nation. And when Khương Duy spoke those words, he didn't just want future generations to remember the betrayer, but also hope that those who would read it later would understand. A country may possess geniuses, have great ambitions, but if it lacks worthy rulers, if trust is placed in the wrong hands, everything will eventually turn to dust. Zhuge Liang, the genius of the Three Kingdoms, a lifetime of loyalty to the country, unparalleled in strategy, ultimately fell in a foreign land with the regret of unfinished business. Mount Wuzhang was not only where he breathed his last, but also where the grand dream of Shu Han was buried, the dream of the Northern Expedition, the unification of Zhongyuan. The question that has always haunted historians is, Why did a man who was knowledgeable in both astronomy and geography, who led armies and governed a nation like Zhuge Liang, repeatedly fail? Why did a brilliant strategist keep failing to turn the tide, even after expending so much energy and meticulously planning every move? After Liu Bei's death, Zhuge Liang became the de facto ruler of Shu. Great generals like Guan Yu, Jiang Wei, and Zhao Yun had all fallen, leaving a massive gap in both military strength and morale. In this situation, Zhuge Liang did not choose the path of preserving national power, but instead decided to continue pursuing Liu Bei's ambition to defeat Jiang Wei and reclaim the empire. He knew the time was ripe, with the Wei dynasty in disarray, power divided between Qiao Shuang and Sima Yi. But even with favorable timing and human resources, Shu Han lacked a critical element: financial resources, logistics, and the support of the people. Despite excellent tactical strategies, the northern expeditions faltered halfway due to depleted supplies, internal instability, and wavering morale. During his first northern expedition, Zhuge Liang applied his strategies step by step, causing Wei forces to falter, capturing several key cities with ease. But a mistake in choosing his officers, allowing Ma Tuo to guard Jiading, changed the course of the battle. Ma Tuo abandoned his post, causing a crisis at the front lines, forcing Zhuge Liang to execute him in order to maintain military discipline. What began as a swift campaign turned into a defensive stance, forcing Zhuge Liang to retreat with deep regret. That was the first failure, a sign of the strategic errors that even Zhuge Liang could not foresee. In his second northern expedition, Zhuge Liang learned from his previous mistakes and improved his tactics, even introducing advanced military technology. The weapons he invented caught Jiang Wei off guard. It seemed as though victory was within reach. But once again, he fell not because the enemy was stronger, but because the rear was too weak. The Shu court faced severe shortages of food, depleted finances, and the army began losing faith. With no other choice, Zhuge Liang had to retreat, leaving behind an opportunity he might never get again. This disappointment did not cause him to falter. Zhuge Liang persisted with 3 more northern expeditions. But from the 3rd expedition onwards, Sima Yi, his most formidable rival, changed tactics. Instead of direct confrontation, he opted for resolute defense. Every march forward was like striking into the void, exhausting men and resources without clear results. By the time of the 5th northern expedition, Zhuge Liang was physically and mentally exhausted. Mount Wuzhong became not only the final battlefield, but also the graveyard of a lifetime of strategy, a heart drained for the people in the country. Despite his ironclad resolve and unwavering loyalty, Khương Duy could not escape the harsh fate that history had prepared for him. After Zhuge Liang's death, he continued to shoulder the responsibility of the northern expeditions with persistence and determination. 8 years, 9 campaigns, known as the 9 expeditions to central China, Khương Duy persevered so relentlessly that it seemed almost mad, attempting to turn around the fate of a nation that was increasingly sinking into crisis. However, Khương Duy's northern expeditions were merely a pale shadow of the glory of the past. Despite some small victories and even reaching the borders of Wei, he was never able to maintain the initiative for long. Each campaign was marked by shortages of supplies, the exhausting wait for support from the rear, and the inevitable retreat in sorrow and frustration. Every step he took carried the size of the court, the suspicious eyes of the officials, and at times the despair of himself. Sadly, the harder Khương Duy tried, the clearer the truth became. Shu Han no longer had the strength to confront Jiang Wei. All the strategies and the courage of a great general ultimately became mere memories swept away by the wind. People called him a general with fame but no substance, but few understood that the fame wasn't just empty glory. It was the last trace of a man who still gritted his teeth, shouldering the responsibility of history, even as everything around him began to collapse. On a strategic level, Khương Duy's tireless efforts couldn't change the painful truth. Zhuge Liang and Khương Duy, the last torchbearers of Shu Han, were ultimately failures. Not because of a lack of courage, but because they were fighting against a tide that could not be stopped. The fate of the nation had tilted, the people's hearts had wavered. Yet they kept pressing forward, like 2 lonely shadows walking toward the dying embers of a dynasty. From the moment he took on the responsibility of reviving Shu Han, Zhuge Liang had clearly defined the life or death strategy, an alliance with Eastern Wu to resist Wei. This wasn't just a temporary political choice. It was a national policy crucial to a weak nation caught between two powerful forces. In his will, Zhuge Liang firmly stated, Wu and Shu together will surely defeat Wei. However, after his death, that relationship gradually deteriorated. Instead of maintaining the tripod alliance, Shu Han allowed its relations with Wu to become loose and disconnected, causing the alliance strategy to silently collapse. The unfortunate truth was that, for decades after, Khương Duy, who continued to hold military power, seemed blind to this breakdown. He continued to lead the troops to fight Wei, still hoping for victory through unilateral northern expeditions, forgetting that Shu Han was no longer a strong enough force to fight alone. From beginning to end, the Shu and Wu forces never truly coordinated to deliver a decisive blow to Wei. Plans that seemed promising were either left incomplete or shattered because of the lack of agreement between the two sides. When Wei prepared to launch the final attack to destroy Shu, historians from Eastern Wu made a very clear and accurate assessment. They argued that Wu's vast territory was defensively solid, while Shu was small and difficult but easily isolated and attacked. The reality proved this to be true. In the final campaign, Shu's forces numbered just over 90,000, while Wei's forces surpassed 100,000. However, this number didn't fully reflect the reality. Wei had a solid rear base and abundant reinforcements, while Shu was exhausted, its people scattered, and its strength fading. An ordinary figure like Liu Hua, neither a famous general nor a strategist, had once frankly advised Khương Duy, there's no need to self-destruct, your intelligence can't surpass the enemy, and your strength is clearly weak. Why keep sending yourself to your doom? A simple statement, yet a deeply insightful warning. Unfortunately, Khương Duy did not choose retreat nor defense, but instead continued to march forward, knowing that ahead lay only an abyss. He carried with him loyalty, but allowed it to lead him into a dead-end road where all efforts would only echo in despair. It was this stubbornness that hastened the fall of Shu Han more than ever before. The downfall of Shu Han wasn't merely due to weakness or the strength of the enemy, but because of internal mistakes, broken trust, misplaced faith, and decisions that seemed right but ultimately led to destruction. Was Zhuge Liang wrong to choose Khương Duy as his successor? Or was Khương Duy wrong to continue a dream that was no longer realistic? These questions remain unanswered, leaving behind not just regret, but a bitter lesson about loyalty, trust, and the price of ideals when placed at the wrong time. What do you think about Khương Duy's deathbed confession? Was he really the cause of Shu Han's demise, or just a victim of the times? Please leave your comments below and share your views. Don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the tragic corners of Three Kingdoms history with us.